Hi everyone, welcome to NCE Review. We are in Domain 1, Professional Practice and Ethics, and this is subcategory N, which states establish group rules, expectations, and termination criteria. So whenever you are doing a group, it's important to inform about the notion of what the norms are going to be or they're going to look like. If you are doing a group in a school, in a institution, in a nonprofit, community agency, groups can look very different, but I think universally they should all have norms and expectations on what that's going to look like. And depending on the population, depending on the demographic, depending on the clients, that's going to determine what type of rules you'll have. Some rules are very driven by counselors. But again, our ethical standards is to promote autonomy. So in groups that in special ed, they call it the least restrictive environment. In the least restrictive environment, you want to promote autonomy, and ideally, if possible, you would want the group to come up with the norms themselves. So things like what is said outside the counseling group, respect, things like what is shared in the group, what types of, of connections, all of that is part of the group rules. Now, with expectations, this can get a little bit tricky because in a group, part of the counselor determining whether a client is appropriate for a group is learning about the client's expectations. And for the most part, for people that do meet the criteria for group, they should have similar expectations, and that should be reinforced by the group leader or the counselor in many cases. So it's important to talk about what some of those expectations are, especially for clients who may not have ever participated in groups or may not be familiar with what groups even are. And then the termination criteria. This is important because in group, if you have a client that is not complying or is not meeting the expectations, then it can certainly skew the dynamic of the group and make it much less ineffective, not just for that person, but for the whole in general. So it's important to understand and let the client understand that if those expectations are not met, or if the criteria isn't as you had talked about or agreed upon or had a contract with, then termination is expected. And again, it's important to explain to them that it's not because of their potential, or it's not because you're picking on them, but it's because it affects the dynamics, it affects other people in the group, and it's just not fair for other people to suffer because of one person. So again, it's I think with the NCE, keep in mind what some of the group rules, how to set them, how to create autonomy with them, how to put expectations, especially expectations that are congruent within the group, and then what are the termination criteria and how will you implement those. Again, going back to boundaries, it's important. Otherwise, it can affect the effectiveness of it.